when you experience existential world collapse and you say, what do I do now? It doesn't help to remember what all your teachers and parents and priests told you should do. That has absolutely no grip on you. It doesn't help. Most people reading Being in Time misunderstand death because they think of what they mean by death when they read Heidegger using the word death. But he doesn't mean what we mean by death. He calls that demise. And he distinguishes what he means by death by articulating it's a kind of profound existential world collapse where, say, what he calls my fundamental for the sake of which, that is like the project that organizes all my other projects, like being a teacher. Let's say that collapses. I get a brain injury or something and I can no longer be a teacher. Well, then all the other projects that sort of propped up that project of being a teacher are going to collapse too. And I'm going to be, it's not like I'm gone. I still exist in the world. I'm just desperately now trying to connect to a world that I can no longer connect to. That's death. I mean, Freud would call it mourning. It's like we continue to reach for a world we can no longer step into and understand ourselves in terms of. And then what happens? Well, that's Being in Time calls this authenticity. Authenticity has two sides, the full definition of authenticity. This is the second division of Being in Time, the existential division. Authenticity is defined as anticipatory resoluteness. So anticipation is this kind of death that you experience in life when you're at an end. Because the other death, demise, the ceasing to live, you don't live through. Where death is, I am not. Where I am, death is not. Death and I don't ever occupy the same place. I can experience myself dying, but I can't experience myself being dead. So I can't have a phenomenology of being dead if death means demise. Existiert endlich, of existing finitely or at an end, where my existence comes to an end because there's no longer any part of me standing outside myself. As long as I'm a teacher, a father, whatever, a student, there's something for me to do tomorrow. There's something I did yesterday. But when my whole world collapses and I can't be anything, I am now completely transparent to myself. And for methodological reasons, he thinks that's a really important move. This is how Division 2 begins. That's what introduces the discussion of death. So death is this kind of world collapse where then I have to find my way back to the world. So that's resolve or Entschlossenheit, disclosedness. So my world collapses, and then he says in Being in Time, I choose to choose. I decide what self I'm going to be, and I project myself back into the world. Later, by 34, in The Origin of the Work of Art, he says it's not about like what you saying, well, do I want to be an artist or a teacher or a poet or a whatever, a stockbroker? Which self do I want to be? What project do I want to be? It's you opening yourself to the hints that reality is offering to you and creatively deciding which of those hints to disclose. And then I take responsibility for how I creatively disclose those hints. I think personal responsibility is something Heidegger is far too quick to erase in his own kind of mystical, quietistic vision of himself as this passive vehicle of providence that's just letting being speak through him, as if he's just taking dictation. But as I say, Heraclitus has this great line: nature, physis, neither lies nor tells you. I'm simplifying. It merely hints. Meaning the way reality speaks to you is it gives you hints, and it's up to you how you creatively disclose those hints. His analysis of death is drawn from his analysis of demise. So he's trying to start, like Aristotle, with what we all know about death, at least what we all think we know about death, the formal characteristics of ordinary death, and then articulate the ontological conditions that structure our everyday experience of death, what he calls demise. So for him, ontological death, this world collapse, is what we're really afraid about, to put it simply, about dying. So he does think, I think, that there's a possible profound transformation in our relationship to death, where instead of just running away from it our whole lives, fleeing it, and thereby running ever more quickly toward it, we can confront it, embrace it as part of life, the last part, or as something that's demise, and understand death as something like what we need to repeatedly pass through in order to repeatedly slough off the skin of outdated self-understandings that are holding us back instead of letting us move on to the next stage in our evolution and the next stage in our, let's say, self-development. Life involves passing through a series of stages where you have to die to the old self that you were in order to become the new self that you're on the way to becoming. And that's not something that just happens once. If you're doing it right, it happens again and again and again. And part of that is getting over the terror of that so that you're not every time desperately clinging to what you were when it's no longer possible. It's not working for you to be that. You got to be able to let it go in order to open yourself to what's coming next. And I think, today the problem of das Man, that is of this thoughtless conformism, this kind of ubiquitous norms of propriety, what you must do to be one of us, one of the good guys, is so amplified by social media, and it's like the prison is getting tighter and tighter. So I would think that for anybody who doesn't fit that, what the world is saying you've got to be, the motivations are getting stronger and stronger to break out of that and reject the world of thoughtless conformity on what we must be, and think for yourself what you want to be and ask those hard questions. What do I want to do with my life? When you experience existential world collapse and you say, what do I do now? It doesn't help to remember what all your teachers and parents and priests told you should do. That has absolutely no grip on you. It doesn't help. And Levinas's view was what you need when your world collapses is a teacher. That is, you need someone who can show you a path forward. Sometimes you need a teacher. It's basically a question of how do you grow up? What do I want to do with my life? This is a book that, granted, at a very abstract level, but for that reason also at a very profound, careful, detailed level, is asking and addressing that question. This kind of, what's it mean to grow up?